Welcome to our Photoshop workshop, day one. We're going to be going over the essentials of Photoshop and building a typographic poster in Photoshop to then ultimately print it out for you. So we'll be doing print design in Photoshop, especially typographic design. So let's go ahead and get started. One of the first things you'll want to do when you're working on your poster is go to our workshop files in Canvas. So if you go to Elms and go to Files, you'll find Workshop Files, and then a folder called Photoshop. Within this folder, you're going to need the colored pencils JPEG, the DCC logo ping, the design supplies JPEG, the UMD logo primary ping, and also a watercolor paper JPEG. So go ahead and download those to a folder on your computer, preferably a folder you've created called Photoshop. You want to be really well organized when you're designing in Photoshop. And in general, as you design, the more organized you are, the stronger your workflow will be. So what we're going to do is emulate the project that you're going to do in this class, which is to design a typographic poster that conveys your definition of design. How do you define design? What does it mean to you? That's what you're going to convey through this poster, and it's going to be primarily a typographic poster. The first step is you're going to go through the language of graphic design, which is this great, fantastic book. I've got it separated into different folders under the readings in Canvas as well. So if you go to Files, and then you go to Readings, O1 Poolin Point and Light is the first part of this book. Each section deals with different components such as shape, for example, and it gives you some posters where the dominant technique is about shape. And I want you to scan through this and find posters that speak to your aesthetic. What are some posters that as you come across them, they just speak to you? Immediately you say, that's the kind of aesthetic I would like to go for. That's the kind of voice I am looking for as a designer. One of the things you'll see as you go through here, let me see if I can find some examples. So here are some designs of wine bottle labels. Don't grab those. There's some logos in here as well. Look for the posters, and you're going to use these as inspiration. You're going to identify two posters from this book that speak to the aesthetic that you would like to develop. I use this book a lot for inspiration, and I don't require anyone to purchase it, but if you've got some extra money, it's a great purchase. It's really such a fantastic book just to have. I flip through it all the time for inspiration. There's just so many fantastic designs in here. So just having it on hand could be really helpful for you. So you're going to identify two of those in the files, the PDF files that I've laid out. Go ahead and grab screenshots of those two posters that speak to you and submit them to Canvas under assignments. And you're going to use these, you're going to hew very closely to these to learn their design aesthetic. You're going to emulate them very closely. And I'm going to mirror that in the work that we're going to do today. So let's jump in. So I'm going to launch Photoshop. And actually, here's the poster that I'm going to use as inspiration. It's called Future Flight. It was part of the Australian Graphic Design Convention. And they built this poster, and I really like its use of color. I like really where things are laid out. How they've laid this poster out is really just beautifully done. The main words here, the hierarchy of it, where it says Future Flight, it's about a third of the way down. It's kind of that golden thirds rule. And then it's using asymmetry. It's putting it off to the side. It's not centered. But this area is balanced by a lot of interesting, colorful paper airplanes that are kind of arranged in this kind of great curvature around the word Future Flight. And then you'll notice the bottom quarter of the page is mostly just blank space, is negative space. And so you have that balancing out the very small letters up here, as well as the more compacted and tightly grouped airplanes that are here. And then at the very bottom, we've got a couple of logos, and then the Australian Graphic Design Association logo right there as well. So we're going to emulate that. So what you're going to do first is you're going to open up Photoshop and you're going to go to File, New. And this is how we're going to set up our poster. You can kind of draw off some of these pre-established designs for art and illustration, for web, etc. Right now, we're just going to start from scratch. So I'm going to call this one. You can call this one Design Test Poster. And actually, for most of these projects too, what I'd like you to do is to put your last name here. So I'm going to put Farman Design Test Poster, and that's what you're going to submit under your workshop files. You can determine pixels or inches. We're going to work in inches because we're working with print, and we want to design for something that's going to end up actually printed on paper. So we're not worried about pixels, which would be web-based. We're worried about the actual inches that are going to go onto the paper here. So your posters are all going to be 16 inches wide by 22 high, or reversed. The orientation of that could be long. Like if you find a poster that's landscape as opposed to portrait orientation, you can do that as well. But for today, we're going to emulate the future flight, which is portrait mode. Our resolution is 300 pixels per inch. We're going to change the CMY, the color mode from RGB, which is meant for web-based graphics, which is red, green, and blue color, you know, the dominance of screen colors that come through red, green, and blue, to CMYK. CMYK stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and key. Key meaning black. And this is a 4-print color process for how people actually print in the design industry. Our background contents are white. We could use transparent if you're making kind of that transparent ping or PNG file or something along those lines. You would use transparent. You could also set an established background color. Over here, you'll see that my background color is white. So actually, that would be redundant. I could use background color or white or black. We're going to do white because that's what we've got going on here. OK, and those are our parameters. We're going to go ahead and hit Create. And from that, what we are going to ultimately produce here, and I'm going to just, I have a lot of tabs open here. We are going to be producing this. We're going to bring in a definition of design that is one that's commonly used, which design is thought made visible. We're going to bring in some design tools to kind of emulate that curve of the airplanes around it. And we're going to drop in some logos here as well. And this is the project that we're going to create by the end here. So let me show you the general layout of Photoshop here, and it may be different for you whether you're on a Mac or a PC. It may look different depending on the default layout of your workspace. So I want to show you how to change that to get it to look similar to mine. If you go up to Window, Workspace, and choose Graphic and Web, that brings you to something that looks similar to mine. You can do something just for photography, where it gets those tools going. It might start you off looking something like this, where it's just essentials. But we're going to work in graphic and web today, doing some graphic design. Over here are the main tools for Photoshop, over on the left-hand side of the screen. And yours might be collapsed like this. And what we've got here, we'll kind of walk you through some of these various tools. And some of them are actually missing from what I'm going to do today. And I'm going to show you how to edit that. Today, we're going to be using something called a Polygonal Lasso, and that's missing from my tools. You'll notice, for example, if I, let me pick one here. For this selection tool, if I hover over it, it's called Object Selection, but it's also got this tiny little corner piece that is kind of a little triangle at the bottom right corner of the screen. And that means there are things beneath it. There are tools actually hidden beneath that tool. So if I click and hold on it, I see a couple of other options. And you might not, actually. I think I might have had to put these in. But under the text tool, if I press and hold, there's actually a vertical type tool. So there are some different options here as well. There should be a little triangle in the bottom corner of the lasso tool, and there's not. And I want there to be because there are many lassos you can actually use. So I'm going to go up to Edit, Toolbars. And here I can go ahead and customize my toolbar. There's the polygonal lasso I want, and I'm going to drag it just right underneath the lasso tool. And I'm also going to drag the magnetic lasso tool. You should see object selection tool also paired with quick selection and magic wand. If it's not, go ahead and drag them over from that side. And then I am going to click done. And now if I press and hold on my lasso tool, I've got these options here, and that's exactly what I want. Okay, over here, I have character, paragraph, and glyphs. And you might not see these. If you don't, you can go up to Window and choose Character. And then it should pop up for you. And character is where we set our fonts, set the font size and color, the spacing, the kerning, the tracking, how far apart the letters are from each other. That's where that all happens. When you want to align your text that's in your poster, you'll use paragraph if you want it center aligned or justified to the left, which is what we're going to do because that's what the Future Flight has as well. So character is there at the top. And then at the bottom here, I've got layers. I can kind of drag that up. Layers is probably the most important thing that you're going to use in Photoshop. Photoshop uses a hierarchy of layers. So layers that are at the bottom of this list are actually literally at the bottom of the document. They're behind things. So the things that are at the top of your layers are out in front. So if you have text out here and then your image back here, your image is going to be lower down on the list of your layers. And you can click and drag these around if to arrange them based on what you actually want in front and what needs to fall behind. So the layers is just so vital, and it's got this little eyeball next to it. You can turn off layers. You can lock layers as well if you don't want them to move. The last thing I'll say here as well is up in the upper left corner, you might have auto select clicked, check mark there. Go ahead and uncheck that. What that does is anything you click on, it selects that layer. And it becomes a headache, honestly, because you're trying to click on so many different things. It's better to just click on the layer itself in the layers palette rather than use auto select. So I always have that turned off as well. Okay, we're going to pull in some images into our photo here that are going to use inspiration. I've found some, but I want to show you where I go to get these images. And I want to discuss what resolution is actually and how resolution works for these posters. Right now, we are at a poster that has 300 pixels per inch, which is just massive. It's a huge poster, and you need high quality images in order to use them well in this poster. So I'm going to discuss and kind of demonstrate how resolution functions. So let's go ahead and do just a basic Google image search. And I'm going to just type cute kittens and then click images. Okay, here's a cute kitten. Oh, that's from a video. Okay, so this image, if I hover over it, it is a resolution of 1280 by 720. Now, if I hit Control and click on it, or right click on it and then choose Open Image in a new tab, then I get that image. It looks pretty large, so let's find out how that will work. And then I'm gonna also pull out some other images as well. And this, interestingly, let's see. Yeah, so you'll notice as you hover over this, if I hover over this one, it says it's 4,734 pixels by 3555. But then when I do open image in new tab, it's this tiny little image, 259 pixels. That's usually because the website that is hosting that picture doesn't want you to actually use it. So here's another picture. Let's see, let me find. I want to just give you an example of some different resolutions. Okay, here's a super cute 510 by 710. I'm going to open that in a new tab. And if I go to tools and I just go large, let's just see what large means to them. Yeah, that 1200, which is actually, these are not as big as I need them to be. And I'll show you what are some other options for finding those really large images. Okay, none of these images are quite as large as I need. What I want to do is actually go to a Google advanced search. So you can, let's jump over to Google advanced image search. So google.com/advanced_image_search, or you can just do a Google search for advanced image search. So let's type in cute kitten. And then I am going to look specifically for something that's larger than 8 megapixels. And I can here as well decide the format and the usage rights. So if it's Creative Commons licensed, I can actually, and choose other licenses as well. So if you need images that are going to be available for you to use commercially in your own design work, you'll want to make sure they're either Creative Commons or some sort of other kind of license. For this class, it doesn't matter. You can go ahead and use whatever kind of image you come across. These are not going to be really publicly used posters that you're doing. They're more for student work, and so you can go ahead and use whatever you like for this class. So I'm going to do an advanced search here. There's that same image again that, and I want to just try to find, and I might need to go even higher than, than what I was at before. Okay, so this is the largest one I've found so far, 4,096. And you can just watch as I kind of go through these. Okay, so this is the largest image that I found from my cute kitten search. And I'm going to go ahead and select it all. So the way to select and pull over an image from a different tab, let's say you open an image like this and you want to pull part of it over, or all of it over in this case, we're going to go ahead and go up to select all, and the shortcut for that is Command or Control A. And then you get these marching ants, this little white line that circles around the image or the part that's selected. We're going to go ahead and go up to Edit, Copy. And now let's go over to my big poster canvas that I've created. And then I'm going to go ahead and go Edit, Paste. Okay, so this is the largest image I've found in my search so far, and it still doesn't cover all of this massive canvas. So you really need to find quality images for that. In this case, I can go ahead and I'm just going to show you really quickly. I can blow this one up slightly without too much issue. Let me go ahead and undo that just to remind you of the image size here. Let's go to, let's go here. I'm going to go Command A, or go up to Select All, and then Command C, or Edit, Copy, and then again Control instead of Command for those on a PC. And then I'm going to go Command or Control V, or Edit, Paste. Okay, so this is a pretty standard image size, this one. This was about 1280 by 720, and it just is so tiny on this canvas that I'm using, because we're using high resolution imagery. We want this to print out crisp and clean and clear, and just your standard internet image is not going to cut it here. Okay, now let's go to just sort of this normal, our smallest image here. And you can just see that that's just not even really visible on our canvas. Okay, so those are now in 3 different layers. Just to show you the kinds of resolutions we're looking for, I would highly suggest finding some really solid images through advanced image search in Google. To get rid of these, I'm gonna select each one, or select the top one and hold Shift, and then the very bottom one that selects them all, and then I can just drag them down to this trash can to get rid of them. And I'm gonna shut these as well. Go ahead and close those out. Don't need them anymore. So that's one place for you to search. Another is to create an account at pxhere.com, and there's lots of great free images uploaded by photographers for you to use for free. And these are content, there's no content restrictions on them as well. So most of the images that we're going to use today, I found here. And when you, for example, let's just type in design. Let's see what comes up just to take a look. Okay, so here's a great, interesting architectural image that I've actually used in the past because I just love this, the design of this building. And what you would do is just click original size, and then it immediately wants to download to your computer. And then that's free use. So that's what we've done for today. And I've gone ahead and uploaded those 2 files and under workshop files. So download those to your folder for Photoshop, as I've done here under workshops, Photoshop, and then I have these. And again, I'm going to go ahead and pull up the test one. And then the first one that we're going to deal with are these design supplies. I'm going to go ahead and open those 2. Just have them ready to go. Actually, I'm going to close this out for now. I don't need the sample one for the time being. Often when you're designing posters, and just in graphic design in general, you come across some really interesting photography, some images you want to use, but you don't necessarily want to use the whole image. You want to be able to isolate pieces of that image. And here, for example, we have a great image of some design tools and just drafting, cutting, some things that people use in different modes of design that I like and I want to use. I like the soft focus off in the background and the sharper focus on the very edges, front edges of the tools. I like the texture of the paper. So I want to use this, but you see the table beneath this. I just want the tools, actually. So there's a range of ways that you can isolate particular images in Photoshop. And we're going to go through the range of ways that you can do that. And these are under your toolkit as well, under here. So here, if you want to go ahead and click and hold under Quick Selection, it gives you this little circle, which is going to be the size of the area that you're going to select out. And usually what I end up doing is trying to find the area of the photograph that is the most simple. And here it's the white paper. There's not a lot of complexity to it. There's not a lot of color variation. I want to find that area that I can just pull out that's easy to select. All these tools, if I were to select them, would be kind of a headache. I don't really want to do that. This brush size, though, this little circle is a little small for this. So I can come up here and kind of bump that up a bit, maybe to around 80. The hardness is 100. Like, how intense do you want this to select? And here, what I'm going to do, you can just kind of click and see what it does. And up here, you'll notice there are some options. So here, it's probably defaulted here or to the plus. If it's on the far left option, and this is true of all selection tools, if I start to drag out again, it starts over. And it just kind of will continue to start over unless this plus sign, which automatically kicked in for this tool, it's gotten smarter over the years. So now it knows, go ahead and just drag out across this white part. Okay, and now we have, you know, the paper selected, and I can actually do this bottom corner as well. But it kind of goes in quite a bit over here on this wire. We're missing the front part of the wood here for this twine. And the shadow for the scissors is gone as well. So that's one option. We're not going to use it. Okay, to get rid of these marching ants in selection, just go ahead and do Command or Control D, and that gets rid of your selection. Okay, go ahead and press and hold and choose the magic wand tool again. And up here in tolerance is basically when you use the magic wand tool, you're clicking on a color and it's going to find every shade of that color that's next to the pixels. Here, 32 shades of white, for example, if I click on the white paper into grays. And I have up here contiguous clicked, so that means the pixels have to be touching. If I turn that off, I'm looking for white anywhere in the whole document. Look for this color and 32 variations of it anywhere in the document. So I'm going to go ahead and just click on the white somewhere. Okay, that did a pretty good job. It actually might have been a little too aggressive over here and maybe not aggressive enough right there, but not too bad. So I'm going to go ahead and go Command Z, which is to undo that. And that's a really important shortcut to learn. Command Z is vital. You just need to remember that's the most important. Command or Control Z, always undoing. Let's tone this down just a bit, maybe to 25 tolerance. It still grabs all of this white up here, so not quite what I'm looking for. Let's go ahead and go Command or Control D to deselect again. And now let's go ahead and do Object Selection Tool. And here you can actually click and drag maybe over the scissors here. Is it going to be able to identify the scissors? And here it's using AI to try to identify the objects within your photograph and isolate them. It didn't do a wonderful job there. Let's see if we can go ahead and click and drag out over these two things. And you'll notice it deselected the scissors and went ahead and selected that. It's done a better job of isolating the wire than anything else so far, but it got rid of the scissors selection because I'm not selected on this little icon up in the upper left corner here, which means add to my selection. So let's see if I can go ahead and select out these pliers as well. Yeah, not too bad. Okay, so that's an option as well. Now let's go ahead and do a couple of other options. Go ahead and go up to Select and choose Subject. Okay, and it's gonna, again, use AI to try to find the subject of your image. And this is great with portrait photography. It gets rid of backgrounds. Doesn't work so well with this image. I'm gonna go Command or Control D to deselect that as well. Let's go ahead and choose color range. This is one that I like to use quite a bit. Gives you an eyedropper, and it's saying find this particular color. Okay, so this is great. I go ahead and click on the white, and I can bump the fuzziness down. And really what I'm trying to do is just get those edges of the tools selected as much as possible, and then still leaving kind of a bit of a drop shadow. So maybe fuzziness of 30 works for me right now. Okay, so that selects most of the tools. Again, it was a bit aggressive, more than I wanted to, but I can actually work with this a bit. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and go over to my lasso, and I'm gonna click and hold and choose Polygonal Lasso tool. Polygonal Lasso is something I use all the time. For example, I'm gonna deselect this just to give you an example of the kind of work you can do with Polygonal Lasso. So here, this is going to give me some trouble. The Polygonal Lasso is something where you click and then you move your mouse and then click again. And you basically just click all the way around your object. So I can start right here and just click and click and click. And I can kind of just start clicking all the way around if I wanted to just isolate this particular one. It's very, very labor intensive. And then maybe I'll get the, try to do some of the drop shadow there as well. And then I go right back to the beginning. And then now I've got this little item selected. Now, however, if you go ahead and do something like select color range of 30, I can go ahead and begin adding or subtracting to that using the Polygonal Lasso as well. So right now it's the white that is selected. And if I want to go ahead and add to that selection, let's say right here, and I'm just making a big circle around this area because I want all of that selected. And then once I get back to the beginning, the little plus sign that's on the Polygonal Lasso turns into a circle. Or you can just double click and it closes out that. Great, now I've gone ahead and added that to the selection. Now it's selected parts of the tools that I don't want. So I actually want to go over to here to minus, and I want to get rid of some of these. So I'm going to begin over here, and basically I'm going to start just kind of clicking. And I'm going to surround the things inside the tools that are selected. I don't want any of these things selected. Okay, now it removed that from there. It's gotten, again, a little aggressive selecting these things right here. I don't want those selected. I want those to stay. Okay, great. And now I've got it. And the way that I'm zooming is I'm just kind of doing kind of a pinch and zoom on my laptop. The other thing you can do is choose the magnifying glass option and just click. And then there's a minus up here and you can click. The shortcuts for those, if you're on a different tool, is to hold down the space bar and then choose either Command or Control and then click. And then that lets you zoom in. And if you need to zoom out, you can go space bar, Command or Control, and then Option or Alt if you're on a PC. And then you just hold those three things down and click, and that zooms out. If I'm zoomed way in, and I can kind of see, for example, oh, this is great. I'm actually glad that I zoomed this far in. I need to get rid of some of this selection because it actually selected too much of this particular tool here. But if I'm zoomed in and I want to see my whole canvas, I can double click the hand tool over here. If I double click on it, it shows you everything. It just zooms out and says, here's the whole canvas. If I want to see what this looks like at 100%, I can double click on the magnifying glass. That's what the 100% looks like, as opposed to kind of zooming back and seeing the whole canvas. Okay, we're ready to port this into our design. So what we're going to do is go ahead and go Command or Control X to cut, or you can go up to Edit, Cut. Oh, dang. I did it wrong. I forgot. I was selected on the paper, not the image itself. I'm going to go Command Z. Sorry. So I'm selected on the paper. I don't care about the paper. I care about the tools. So let's go ahead and go up to Select and then Inverse. Select the opposite of what I'm currently selected on. Oh, and I see, for example, the corner of the table is still selected over here too. So I'm going to use my Polygonal Lasso, and then I'm just going to go ahead and minus that out. Just surround those marching ants that are on that table. I don't care about that corner. Okay, now I can go ahead and cut that. Let's jump over to our canvas and go Command V or Edit Paste. All right, this is the first part of the loop. What we're going to do now is rotate this. And to do that, you're going to go up to Edit and Free Transform. And the shortcut for that is Command or Control T. And that puts a bounding box around your image. And you can shrink that image, you can make it larger, but we want to rotate it. So if you hover out over one of the corners, the icon or the cursor turns into a curved arrow here. And then I can click and drag. And one of the things you'll notice if you hold Shift, it will go in increments of 15. So you can have very precise. And I don't want to do that because I am actually just, what I'm doing here is trying to recreate that curvature of the design. I want to start the curve, and I'm going to kind of make this slightly bigger so those pliers are off the side there. Okay, and then once I'm done, I can either click the check mark box, or I can, and you know what, I'm going to make this slightly larger. Sorry. Trying to think about how I did this in the original version of my design here. That's pretty good. So I can hit Enter, or I can hit the check mark up here at the top, and it confirms that. And I see that it pulled in some different paper here, and that's okay. We're gonna work with this to to get it a bit better. Okay, we're going to go up to File and Open. We're going to pull in the colored pencils now. So go ahead and find the colored pencils design here. Okay, now what we can do here as well, we can do something like select subject. It doesn't quite select this pencil very well, so we may need to kind of tweak that a little bit. You can similarly do color range and see if that works for you. There's too much overlap there. We can try to try some of these various techniques that we've done where we're selecting objects. That doesn't quite work. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and just do select subject. I really think that that did a pretty good job. And what I might do is with my Polygonal Lasso, go ahead and add in the white colored pencil, and then I just go right back to where I am. Oh, I'm sorry. It was on minus. So I'm going to go ahead and circle this colored pencil and go ahead and add that in with everything. If I don't quite like how these, the detail on these, if it didn't go deep enough, I can subtract this from there. You can decide what kind of detail work you want to do here. I'm gonna just get a little particular with this. That one was a little too aggressive. Okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and go Command X or Edit Cut. Go back to my design test and Command or Control V to paste these in, or Edit Paste. And now let's do Free Transform, Command or Control T. And again, I'm going to rotate these. And I'm trying to use these as a way to kind of round out the curve that's similar to that future flight poster. So I'm blowing these up a bit, not enough to have any issue with the pixelization of it. You'll notice as you shrink and just kind of drag, it all stays proportional. If there's a time, like right now, for example, if I want to make this wider, it will just make the whole thing bigger. But if I wanted to just stretch it a little bit, I'll hold the Shift key and drag. And then that kind of works there. And then again, hit Enter or choose the check mark up here at the top to confirm. That's what I like. Okay, lastly, let's go ahead and open up. Let's add some texture. A great way to add texture to the base of your images is to go find some interesting textured paper out there and use it as the base for your poster. I'm going to rotate this. So I'm going to go up to Image rotation, and either clockwise or counterclockwise. Here it doesn't matter. And then I'm going to select it all again, Command A, Command or Control A. And now I need this to be at the bottom here. So I'm going to click on the background layer, and then when I paste, it should put it on an, oops, it didn't, it did the wrong one. I didn't copy it. Forgot to copy. And now when I paste, it will have pasted there, and I can see exactly how big it is. It needs to be larger, and I can, again, hold Shift to change the constraints of that and hit Enter. What I'm trying to do is kind of match, I'm going to zoom in here, see this watercolor paper that's down beneath here. I just want to somewhat match it. Right now, the paper that I pulled in is a little too yellow. So I'm going to go up to Image and make some adjustments here. So I can change the hue and saturation. I can bump up the lightness, for example, pull down some of that saturation, make it a little more gray, just to add a bit of texture. And you can see there's a hard line right here. If I go to my design tool, it pulled in some of that. If you ever need to get those marching ants around just a particular object, you'll hold Command or Control and then click on the icon in the layer of the thing, and then you'll get those marching ants as well. I'm going to deselect, and if I turn off the eye here, yep, I can see that part of the paper here is being pulled in. So what I'm going to do here is just highlight this area to get rid of that hard edge. You might not even be able to see it in the video here. And then I'm just going to go Command X and get rid of it, just to create a smoother transition between those things. Okay. The one thing that doesn't quite work here is that these colored pencils are a little too vibrant, and there's also no drop shadow on them to match the shadowing or the lighting on the design tools that they're mixing with. So what I'm going to do is select the layer for the colored pencils, and I'm going to just make these a little duller. I'm going to try to match the image through, I'm going to pull back some of the saturation. So I go to Hue and Saturation. I want these to be just not quite as vibrant as they are, maybe slightly darker as well. Just so it doesn't feel like I plopped on these colored pencils, which is what I did. I just don't want it to feel like that. And go ahead and click OK. The last thing is I'm going to do a drop shadow here to match the shading, the lighting of the design tools above them. And the way to do that is at the very bottom of the layers palette, you've got this little FX. I'm going to click on that and then scroll down to the very bottom where it says drop shadow. Okay. I'm going to change this from blend mode to normal. And I'm going to change the opacity right now anyway to 100%. I want to see exactly what this looks like. And I'm going to go ahead and just bump this up. I want to be able to see where these are at. Okay, there's the drop shadow. You see that dark thing emerging. And the distance is pretty significant here because we are kind of off the paper. The size of it, we can adjust to kind of create some of that dullness. And then the spread, you know, how much does it spread out? For this one, it doesn't actually spread out all that much. Now we just need to find the right angle. Where's that light coming from? And that matches it pretty closely. And then we can go ahead and drop the opacity back down to match what the original source photo looks like. And then I'll click OK. So those are my settings anyway for this. I'm at about 140-degree angle for where the sun is coming from or the lighting source is coming from. Distance is almost as high as I could get it in terms of pixels. You could bump this up even more if you wanted to do like 375, something along those lines. Spread of 7, size of about 180 pixels, and then I'll click OK. And now I've got this drop shadow effect on my image to give it some depth and hopefully let it blend in a little bit more with those design tools. Okay, now we're ready for our typography. So the type is really going to be the centerpiece of all of your designs. You need to come up with what you're going to do. And if we look at the source photo that we are working with. So if we look at our source image that we're drawing inspiration from, I want to follow their technique very closely because I want to understand how they did what they did. And so I really like this origami font, and I'm going to go find something similar just to see exactly how that might look in mine. So one place you can find some great fonts is a website called dafont.com, dafont.com. And I typed in origami, and then at the bottom here, I found this one that looks somewhat similar. Let's compare it again. Yeah, that looks fairly similar to what I want to do. And I'm going to go ahead and download this, and these download as zip files. And there it is, the TTF file, a true type font. And if you're on a PC, you can simply just double click on this and install it. For a Macintosh, it's a little bit different. You need to go up to your Finder preferences and to go ahead and enable hard disks so you can see your hard disks on your Finder. And I've got my Macintosh HD there, hard drive. And if I go into that, I can go into Library and Fonts and then drop it in. And that's how you add fonts to your computer that can be used on all Adobe software. The other thing is, when you are working with Adobe, you can go to fonts.adobe.com. And when you log in, you can search for different kinds of serif fonts, for example, and go ahead and install these as part of your cloud experience that then can be accessed directly in Photoshop. So I've installed this origami font, and I want you to go ahead and do the same thing. I'm going to go back to my design here, and I'm going to choose the type tool, which is the shortcut T. Now, importantly, you just tap here. You don't drag out a box to start typing unless you want it to be constrained, and I don't right here. So I'm going to tap, and it gives me some very small default font here, but I'm going to do in all caps. I'm going to type design is, and then hit return, thought, and then return, made, and then return again, visible. And then I can confirm it by hitting that X. I am done with that. Cannot see it. So where did it go? It's actually white font, Myriad Pro. So let me go ahead and see if I can find that origami font. Great. And here is the size. So you can either do something like a drop down 60 point. And then I can click on the color and then just drag it all the way over. Okay. And maybe I want it bigger than this. So one of the things I'll teach you as well is that if you hover over the two letters, the two T's that are next to the 60-point font here, your cursor turns into a hand with arrows going in both directions, and you can click and hold your mouse down and then drag to the right, and you can scrub sizes here. So maybe I want this to be about 72 points. Okay, the other thing is I want to match the style of that other poster that I'm emulating, and they just had an outline for this, and that's another FX where I'm going to do add a stroke to it. But first I want to go ahead and turn the fill off. So under my layers for that typography, I'm going to turn the fill all the way down to 0, and that makes it disappear. Then I go to FX and then stroke. And I can bump the size up a bit, maybe to 4. And I can kind of decide which looks better. Maybe outside position looks best here for, or center. You can decide. Okay, I like that. Now, if your letters are too far apart or too close to each other, you can change that by this right here with the VA inside of a box. You can add space to your letters. And again, you can just kind of scrub it and see if you want those really far apart from each other or very close together. And for this, is a little hard to read, so I might do just add a tiny bit of space here. And similarly, instead of auto, you can choose a line height between your lines here. Like, how close do you want these together? So here I'm at about 88, which is probably similar to auto, yeah. Okay, so I've got my definition of design up and running, and I can choose the move tool over here to move it around where I want it to be. And again, kind of thinking of those golden third ways of dividing, I might put it right there. So that's starting to look similar to what I was hoping it would be. And now let's go ahead and pull in those logos at the bottom. So let's go ahead and go File, Open. Go to my workshop, Photoshop Workshop folder, and then I'm going to find the DCC logo with tagline. Command or Control A, and then edit copy, or Command Control C. And then let's go ahead and paste that in. And now it's too big, so I want to go ahead and go Command T or edit free transform and just shrink this down very small. And essentially what we're doing is we're just going to drag this over into the corner and hit enter. Okay, I'm done with the logo. I can close that. I'm done with the watercolor paper. I don't need to save it because I rotated it, so it's asking me if I wanted to save it. I'm done with the colored pencils, and I don't need to save that as well. Done with the design file. You know what? I realized we have not saved our file, which is like the gravest sin ever. Let's go ahead and go up to File, Save As, and I want to show you a couple of things when it comes to saving. Do you want to save to your cloud documents? You can do that, or to your computer. I often will do both, but I wanted to show you how you could save it to your computer. Here I am in my Photoshop folder that I've created, Farm and Design Test.psd. PSD is a Photoshop document, and a Photoshop document means that this is the editable document. This is the raw document where you can go in, get rid of things, change the kind of font you're using, make it smaller if your client says, you know, the type is just too big here, it's illegible, I can't read it, I need a different typeface. You'll open your PSD file. So you always save a PSD because it's editable, but it's not postable on the web. You can't necessarily email this to a client unless they've got Photoshop and unless they've got all these fonts already installed on their computers as well. So the Photoshop file is for you as an editable file to go back and fix things when you need to. So I'm going to go ahead and save that here. And do you want to maximize capability? We'll click OK. I'm going to go ahead and do that again. I'm going to go ahead and go File, Save As, just to show you what you're going to do when you share it with me. You're not going to upload your PSD file to Canvas. It won't let you. What you're going to do is a JPEG instead. And you're going to save it. And for this, we're doing maximum resolution, maximum file size, 18 megabytes. That's good. We're going to go ahead and click OK, and it's going to take a little while to save, and then we're done. So now I have two different files on my computer. One's flat. I can post it to the web. I can put it, I can share it with people, and it's immediately visible to them, even though the file size is much too big for the web, actually. But it's something that I can share widely. While the PSD file is on my computer, I can go back in, and that's the editable file. So I'm still in the PSD file here in Photoshop, and I've got that Design Cultures and Creativity logo. I'm going to go ahead and open up the UMD logo primary and select all, Command A or Control A, and then copy, Command or Control C. Let's go ahead and paste this, Command V, and then I'm going to go ahead and transform this, so Command T or Control T, and shrink this down to about a similar size. All right, I'm going to show you a couple of techniques as well that I use on a regular basis. I have no idea if these logos line up with each other, if they're the same height, and I need to know that. And I also want to align them left with Design is Thought Made Visible. So go up to View, Rulers, and now we've got these rulers on our top and left sides. And what you do is you want to be able to click right on the ruler and drag, and then I'm going to drag it right to the edge of Design made visible. I'm going to do the same thing from the top down to the very top of my logos to see if they are aligned there. And then I'm going to zoom in. You can do that, and again, in a variety of ways using the zoom tool. Okay, layer 4 is my DCC logo, so I'm going to double click on the words layer 4 and change it to DCC logo so I actually know what I'm looking at in my layers, and UMD logo here. And we're going to select the DCC logo. We're going to align it there, and it's a little bit smaller than the UMD logo. So I'm going to go ahead and blow it up a bit, hit enter, and then select the UMD logo. And with the move tool, or V is the shortcut for the move tool, I use that all the time. I'll move the University of Maryland logo over. And then when I'm done with those guys, I can go ahead and clear them. I am going to use them for one more thing here at the end, though. In my source images, I really like these very small paragraphs up in the upper corner. And I'm going to go ahead and emulate that. So I'm going to choose my text tool, and then I'm going to click and drag out a paragraph, and it kind of defaults it for you. And what I'm going to do is, from the syllabus for this course, I'm just going to grab the first couple of sentences of our description and then copy those, and I'm going to paste those in here. Okay, so you can see that it's no longer selected. I can't select in it. You can double click in there. That's one option to get your text selected again, or double click on the T in the layers palette. And then I can go ahead and hit paste. And I'm just going to go ahead and choose kind of a generic typeface, such as Arial Narrow. I'm going to turn it black. And I'm going to bring the typeface way down the size of it. Oh, you know what? It did not do that because it wasn't selected. Okay, let's try that again. So I just double clicked on it. Arial Narrow. Okay, I don't need any spacing between it, so I'm going to get rid of that spacing. I'm going to go ahead and choose a font size of something like 12. Let's see if that's, yeah, that's pretty good. Maybe up just a hair. Let's see if we want to do 14. Okay, that looks a little bit better. Okay, and then I'm going to do it one more time, but a slightly smaller paragraph, a little bit skinnier. Grab one more sentence from this, maybe this course is making as a mode of thinking. Double click on this, I can select all, I can then paste, change it to a capital, this. So I'm gonna highlight all of that. So I clicked into it. I'm going to go back to Arial Narrow. .14 point. And then I want to be able to see if these are aligned, so I can drag out a guide there as well. Kind of pull them closer together. I can use my arrow keys to nudge things around if I'm selected on something and have the move tool. Then I can go up to view, clear guides. I don't have to see those anymore. Okay, let's double click on the hand and see how this is coming along. And now I'm going to kind of compare the posters. I think the design is thought made visible is not quite where I want it to be. And actually, these are probably too big as well. So this has a lot more white space, the inspiration poster, than my poster does. So I need to kind of pull things back a little bit. So I might shrink down these pencils a bit, kind of move them up, and create that, you know, that white space at the bottom that the other poster just does so well. Maybe rotate these even a little bit more. Yeah, that kind of starts to create that curve, and maybe even with these, I kind of can transform them a bit more as well to continue the curve. Okay, let's take a look here. And then the other thing is actually these paragraphs up here are just so tiny. I really like how they did that. So I'm going to go ahead and select both of those. I'm going to select one layer and hold Shift or Command or Control to select both. Then I go Command T, and I'm going to go ahead and shrink these down even more and just stick them way up in the corner here. Okay, this is starting to look a little bit more like my inspiration poster. I might nudge this up again toward that third. Okay, and this is what I'm going to settle on. I think this looks pretty good. This it uses asymmetry well. It uses the negative space at the bottom really well, where this whole area right here is balanced by all this bunch, and especially this up here. So this works to start. I feel like something's missing over here, and I can kind of draw inspiration where they've got their logo here. So I might, at the very end of this, just type HDCC 105 and Command T to transform it, and then just hold Shift and make sure I'm at that 90-degree angle. I'll hit Enter and then make it smaller. Okay, that helps. It's a little bit cluttered, which the other one is not. I might try to work on that a little bit. Maybe the pencils are too pronounced or too dominant. Maybe I need to kind of move these back just a bit to make them not so central. But it is a good start there. So I'm going to go ahead and call this done for now. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and go up to File, Save As, to my computer. I'm going to save it again as a J. I can definitely save the PSD. Go ahead and replace it. I want to continue to have all of my changes there, and then go ahead and, oh, it's saving. And now I'm going to go ahead and save it as a JPEG again to my computer. And that's what you're going to share with me. Okay, so this is the first part of just kind of some of the basics of Photoshop. Next time we're going to deal with a little bit of photo manipulation to compose something really unique and interesting. For today, if you can go ahead and upload your workshop file, which should look just like this or similar enough to it to where I can see that you followed along with me today. I can take a look at that and know that you're all keeping up with this. So thanks for following along, and I'll see you in our next Photoshop workshop.